Welcome to Xian Voice. Continuing from the previous episode. The majestic spiritual strength appeared just like unending mighty wave as it swept through the sky. It carried an unusually frightening pressure that rushed toward the purple-robed old man in a lightning-like manner. Space trembled wherever it passed. Threads of dark black lines quietly spread. Although the spiritual strength was without form or color, anyone who possessed strength would be able to sense the frightening pressure that permeated the sky. This kind of pressure originated from deep within one's soul, causing one to possess a fluttering feeling. At this moment, the many private conversations came to an abrupt stop. The expressions of some of the people who had scoffed at Xiao Yan's earlier arrogance stiffened. At a glance, they appeared exceptionally comical. After having advanced to the Dozong class, the current Xiao Yan had likely reached the 7th tier if one were to talk about his Alchemist tier. Moreover, due to his spiritual strength being outstanding to begin with, it was likely that he would not be inferior to some true Tier 7 alchemists. Such a frightening strength would naturally release an unusually powerful pressure when it was unleashed. Forget about Zheng Shu, who was only a Tier 6 alchemist. Even if he had reached the level of a Tier 7 alchemist, the outcome of his battle with Xiao Yan would be unpredictable. Elder Kai Huo was stunned as he watched the majestic strength that swept across the sky. A moment later, he inhaled a deep breath of air. His eyes revealed a shaken expression as he looked at Xiao Yan a short distance away. A hoarse voice that carried some disbelief was slowly emitted from his mouth. A Tier 7 alchemist? Spiritual strength was a fundamental ability that all alchemists relied on to survive because only by possessing powerful spiritual strength would an alchemist be able to control a flame and successfully refine a medicinal pill. Hence, the might of spiritual strength was directly linked to an alchemist's skill level. Many people in the Central Plains identified the gap between two alchemists through this spiritual strength. This was why Elder Kai Huo was able to reveal Xiao Yan's alchemist tier when he sensed his spiritual strength. Of course, a great storm rose within the heart of Elder Kai Huo at this moment. He had never expected Xiao Yan not only be a Dozong, but also someone who possessed such deep attainments in terms of medicinal refinement skill. Tier 7. A Tier 7 alchemist. This status was of significant weight even in the Central Plains region. It should be known that an alchemist of such tier might not be at the peak within the Pill Tower, but was definitely considered a top existence. Moreover, the thing that really shocked Elder Kai Huo was Xiao Yan's age. Even with his experience, it was the first time that he had seen such a young Tier 7 alchemist in all his life. Such talent in both Do-Chi and pill refinement could really be described as monstrous. That old fellow Zheng Shu is going to be unlucky this time around. He dared to be so boastful. While Elder Kai Huo was feeling regretful for Zheng Shu, the regret in Zheng Shu's heart was more than 10 times greater than what the elder felt for him. Of course, anyone who faced such a majestic spiritual strength that was heading toward them from all directions would not appear calm. Zheng Shu's face had completely turned white at this moment. His eyes vaguely revealed a dullness and fear. Being an alchemist, he was even more sensitive to spiritual strength. The majestic strength that was heading toward him caused him to feel as though he was faced with a vast ocean. This kind of feeling was something that he had only sensed from some of the elders in the Pill Tower. Moreover, those elders all possessed a great reputation throughout the Central Plains region without exception. However, the one who gave him such a feeling this time around was not those elders from the Pill Tower. Instead, it was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. A Tier 7 alchemist? How is that possible? A crazy, ruthless expression surged into Zheng Shu's eyes after his body slightly trembled. He definitely did not believe that this younger generation, who appeared like a little fellow, was on the 7th tier. A level he only looked up to. The ruthless expression had just appeared when Zheng Shu swiftly took a couple of steps back. At this moment, he no longer bothered about those boastful words that he had spoken earlier. He let out a soft roar and a powerful spiritual strength poured out of his body. It swiftly agglomerated into an invisible spiritual barrier in front of him. Brat, forget about trying to play some tricks in front of the old me. Zheng Shu's eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan. He coldly cried out after the spiritual barrier was formed. Xiao Yan raised his eyes in the face of Zheng Shu's cry. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a mocking smile. This Zheng Shu was merely a Tier 6 alchemist, yet this person dared to show off his spiritual strength in front of him. It appeared as though this Zheng Shu was seeking his own suffering. Xiao Yan gently flicked his finger and softly said, "Go." His word had just sounded when the majestic spiritual strength that swept through the sky instantly gathered. It formed a substance-like spiritual hammer in front of an innumerable number of shocked eyes. After which, it ruthlessly fell and smashed against the thick spiritual barrier. Bang! The two suddenly collided and a shocking ripple spread out. It immediately unrolled over the open ground like a wave of water. In an instant, a slight tremble appeared in the open ground. Numerous cracks formed. Crack! An invisible ripple suddenly spread from the point of contact between the heavy hammer and the spiritual barrier. Zheng Shu's face also turned purple. He went all out to maneuver his spiritual strength before pouring it into the spiritual barrier. Break! Xiao Yan extended his hand. He pointed at Zheng Shu from a great distance. His finger pressed into empty air as he let out a soft laugh. The word had just left Xiao Yan's mouth when the energy on the spiritual heavy hammer suddenly soared. Immediately, a cracking sound appeared. Numerous crack lines swiftly spread over the invisible barrier in front of Zheng Shu and the other shocked gazes present. Boom! While the crack lines spread, the crumbling spiritual barrier was finally unable to endure the frightening spiritual strength attack. It emitted a boom sound, transformed into countless number of fragments, and blasted apart. Grug! The spiritual barrier blasted apart. The expression of Zheng Shu, who was connected to it, instantly turned white. Immediately, a mouthful of fresh blood was spat out. His body also flew back as though he had suffered a serious blow. He landed heavily on the ground and formed a scar that was nearly 100 meters long before he finally paused. The entire place was silent. Numerous eyes were dull as they looked at Zheng Shu, who had fallen to the ground. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. For an instant, no one opened their mouths. One strike, a Tier 6 alchemist was defeated after only one exchange. Moreover, he was defeated quite miserably. The person who had managed to do this was merely a young man, only 20 years old or so. Silence continued for a moment before it was finally broken by the sound of someone inhaling a cold breath. Numerous eyes carried a fiery heat as they slid to the young man who had not even taken a step forward. At this moment, everyone could guess that this person's tier was likely even higher than Zheng Shu's tier. Zheng Shu was a Tier 6 alchemist. Since Xiao Yan was of an even higher tier, the answer to his level seemed obvious. Tier 7. Only an alchemist of this tier would be able to turn a Tier 6 alchemist into such a miserable state in a spiritual strength fight. This person is a Tier 7 alchemist? The throats of countless number of people rolled. The expressions in their eyes had also become dull. Tier 7 alchemist, this was not an ordinary heavyweight. An alchemist of this tier would definitely be a top existence within the Burning Flame Valley or even the Pill Tower. Cheng Yao and the entire Cheng clan were stunned as they looked at Zheng Shu, who was lying in the distance with no one knowing whether he was still alive. Only a moment later did they swallow a mouthful of saliva with much difficulty. A Tier 7 alchemist? Their bodies involuntarily felt chill as they trembled when they thought of this. A person of such an existence would not have much difficulty destroying their Cheng clan. All he needed to do was open his mouth and many extremely strong people would happily act on his behalf. The ability of a Tier 7 alchemist to gather helpers was something that no one dared to doubt. This Lu clan, when did they get to know an alchemist of this tier? Why is it that I have never even heard any news of it? Cheng Yao's expression was volatile. Thoughts flew around his heart. A Tier 7 alchemist was an important person that was beyond what a clan like theirs could hire. He could not understand why the Lu clan could invite him over. A short distance away from Cheng Yao, Lu Qing, Lu Fei, and the others were also looking at Zheng Shu on the ground in the distance with wide open mouths. Lu Qing's group felt a kind of ridiculous feeling when Zheng Shu was unable to even endure one exchange with Xiao Yan. That was a Tier 6 alchemist. Tier 7 alchemist. The two white-haired, old men behind Lu Qing slowly inhaled a breath of air at this moment. Their tone contained a joy that could not be suppressed as they asked, "This Mr. is a Tier 7 alchemist. Clan head, is he really your friend?" Lu Qing's heart involuntarily felt proud when he heard the disbelief in the tone of their voices. These two old fellows might be the elders of the clan, but they had always objected to him being chosen as the clan head. Today, he could coincidentally use Xiao Yan's face to dampen their spirits. Lu Qing might feel proud in his heart, but his expression did not change. He replied in a faint voice, if he is not my friend, do you two elders think that someone else would intervene? The two elders smiled in embarrassment when they heard this. However, they did not retort. If Lu Qing really possessed a Tier 7 alchemist friend, it would undoubtedly bring a great joy to the Lu clan. This senior, may I know if there is an end result for this match? Xiao Yan waved his sleeves and the majestic spiritual strength that spread through the sky instantly disappeared. He looked to Elder Kai Huo as inquired with a smile. Upon hearing Xiao Yan's words, Elder Kai Huo's eyes hurriedly withdrew from Zhang Shu in the distance, whose fate was unknown. A rare smile surfaced on his face as he nodded. Young friend's strength is extraordinary. The victory naturally belongs to you. KK, the management rights for the Tianwang City's wormhole for the next 3 years will belong to the Lu clan.